So Rex, this cover photograph is from?
That's from 1975. That's the first time we saw the whalers.
First time we saw?
First time we ever saw the whaling fleet was that photograph. That's the first time we were approaching them. The thing is, when Greenpeace was starting, what we wanted to do was we wanted to create an environmental movement. We thought, well, you know, there's a civil rights movement, there's a women's movement, this is all great, but there needs to be an environmental movement. We weren't really thinking of starting an organization. That wasn't our plan. We weren't trying to make Greenpeace famous. We were trying to make the environment famous. I mean, the thing about Greenpeace in the beginning was it was pretty grassroots, and we didn't have any money, and it was all volunteers, and it was pretty crazy at times. But it wasn't just chaos. We were actually trying to think it through. You know, from the time of the first whale campaign in 1975, Greenpeace suddenly became instantly popular. Every time we were successful in making the nuclear weapons issue popular, or making the whales popular, or the seals popular, we also simultaneously made Greenpeace popular. And then people wanted to have Greenpeace offices all over the world, and, you know, our first response is, cool, open them up. Well, now, you know, 40 years later, we take it for granted that there's an environmental movement. And we also take it for granted that Greenpeace is this huge international organization. But we had no intention, really, of starting an international organization.
The fact that Rex and the founders were journalists is a really important part of the whole narrative of Greenpeace 40-year history. Most of the movements tend, because they didn't have communications people and didn't have media folks in the founding, tend to speak to themselves.
Right, because you see the idea of direct action, which we got from the Quakers really, and from Gandhi and from others, is the action has to speak for itself. When you get between a whaling boat and a whale, right, or when you sail a boat into a nuclear test zone, you want to create an action where anybody can see that photograph on the front page of their newspaper anywhere in the world, and they can immediately understand what's going on. Because remember, I mean, the whole idea is to go directly to the consciousness of the public. You have to say things in a way that is going to help the person digest the idea that you're trying to say. And humor is one of them. Better to look silly sometimes and to even mock yourself and go, oh, you know, there we go again, you know, doing some crazy stunt, you know. Because if you laugh at yourself, it helps other people take you seriously. It's like a reverse cycle. It's like if you always take yourself too seriously, everybody else starts getting skeptical. Like,
you should let other people take you seriously.
Yeah,
you should behave in a way. No, Rex is absolutely right. You've got to behave in a way that others feel
disarms them somewhat.
Disarms them. I've been saying in lots of media work and so on that, you know, the struggle for environmental justice is not a popularity contest.
Right.
It's about speaking truth to power. It's about bearing witness to what's happening, and it's about actually saying some really hard, uncomfortable facts, such as the waters are going black, the trees are disappearing, the fish are, you know, gone, either contaminated, gone, or poisoned. And when you put that kind of reality on the table, it tells us that we have to actually go back to the prophecy of the warriors of the rainbow, right? You know, we have reached that. The prophecy is with us now.
Right.
But I do think we have to get better at making the environmental struggle a social struggle. We have to break the dichotomy that the agenda of environmental justice is in contradiction with the agenda of social and economic justice. Right. If you talked about defending forests 10 years ago, in a lot of the imagination, it was about biodiversity, tree huggers, people who love trees just for the sake of the beauty of the trees. Now, that's legitimate in itself. But if we speak about defending the forests as critical to the livelihoods of people in the forests, critical for the lungs of the planet, and it affects everybody, then you can actually build a broader narrative that more people feel that they're stakeholders in the struggle. And if we had, you know, 100,000 local groups, they could be talking about what actions they can take on the environment in their communities, what actions they can take to lobby the local government. We have to not simply think out of the box, we must chuck the bloody box away and think in a very different way.
The fact is, we have seen throughout even our own lifetimes, and well as human history, that we can actually go through these social transformations, which at one point we thought impossible. We've talked about Gandhi, we've talked about the women's movement, we've talked about the civil rights movement and so forth. Before these movements happened, they seemed impossible. So sometimes it takes, centuries of people organizing around an idea, and then suddenly it happens, and it happens quickly. So this is where I hold out hope.